When the Alps glow bright with splendor, pray to God, to Him surrender. For you feel and understand that God dwelleth in this land, that God the Lord dwelleth in this land. August has always been a transitional month for me. When I was a child, it meant that summer vacation was drawing to an end and soon school would begin again. But in addition to that melancholy feeling of endings, there were things to celebrate in August. A family vacation, going camping usually, and of course, the celebration of Swiss National Day, observing when Switzerland became a country in 1291. And being that my father heralds from the village of Appenzell, it's a big to-do in our household. As I put the apron on, I remembered that there is a significance as to where you tie the bow. But I couldn't remember if on the right-hand side it meant you're married, on the left-hand side it meant you're single. I'm not quite sure, so I decided to tie my bow in the middle. Of course, I wonder what that means. I'll have to look that up later on. The weather has been a bit humid to make the special cookies that I had planned for our celebration, but I wanted to dust off the old wooden carved cookie cutters that my grandmother used to have many years ago. Such wooden cookie molds date back to the 1500s. Many of the early designs were biblical scenes to teach the people the faith. Perhaps I'll just pass on making the cookies as I think the dough will be a little too sticky. But it is time to pack a lunch as we head out into the fields and the hills to just take a deep breath and reconnect with God and nature. For me, there's something more beautiful than the sound of an Alp horn, the sounds of the accordion, of bells on the cows ringing. So many memories, so many feelings, so much to be thankful for. When I was a little girl, I used to tell my father that I was going to move to Switzerland one of these days. Well, I haven't gotten there yet, but these hills and back pastures in Vermont really do bring out the inner Julie Andrews in me, as I find myself just wanting to run through the fields and do my best. The hills are alive with the sound of music. I remember my first trip to Switzerland. I was in first grade and I was so excited to visit my grandparents at their farmhouse that as soon as we got out of the car after coming from the airport, I took off running down the field in my red sandals. Little did I know that they had recently sprayed the fields with cow manure. The squishing of the ground beneath me had me wondering what was going on, but I kept running and I enjoyed every moment of it. And as a farmer once reminded me, it's because of that manure that flowers like these can grow. I just had to press them as I adored their heart-shaped petals. Does anyone press flowers anymore? It's strange as we get older, we try our best to avoid the muck in life. But like that farmer reminded me how the flowers grow because of it, we too are often nourished in the very muck of life. Well, welcome, my friends, to Old Stonewall Farm, where the Swiss national celebrations are still in full swing. The day might be marked on the calendar as August 1st, but here in this little house, I like to celebrate perhaps all month. I like to embrace my Swiss heritage. And this year I added something new to the celebrations. I got these wonderful little Swiss flag votive candles, which just look really nice on the fireplace. So they are plastic. They're not glass, which I was a little disappointed in, but I'll take what I can. Now I have a question for you. When you think of Switzerland, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Chocolate? Cheese? How about cows? How about watches? How about the story of Heidi? These are many of the things that come to mind when you think of Switzerland. And I feel like I'm going to burst out into song, singing Julia Andrews. These are a few of my favorite things. And they are. They are my favorite things. I love cheese. In fact, I ate a little too much last night. Chocolate, I ate a little too much last night. And cows, well, I said hello to my neighbor's cows. And of course, I took Heidi off of the bookshelf and I started to read it. But what you might not know is that Switzerland is also the home of a story about a little Swiss boy. In fact, the author of Heidi, Johanna Spyri, after she wrote Heidi, she wrote A Little Swiss Boy. It's a great little book. And as always, the author brings us a lesson of life, of what it means to be included, what it means to be loved, what it means to make friends with one another, what it means to embrace nature and God. The story is once again set in the Alps, and this little boy really doesn't want to follow in the footsteps of his father, taking care of the cows or haying the fields in the summertime. He doesn't want to be a mountain boy. Rather, this little boy, every time he is up in the Alps tending to the animals, which they took the herd up every summer, a big festive parade, and then when fall comes, all the cows and goats would be led back down off of the mountain. Again, another big festivity with the cows decorated and the bells clanging. But this little boy did not want that kind of life. For him, he could hear music in the wind. He heard songs being played in the rustling of the grass. And he would turn to his sister many times when they were out in the field tending to the cows. He would say to her, "Can't you hear that? Isn't that beautiful?" And of course, she couldn't hear it. But he had an ear for music, and he wanted to pursue that. He eventually does train with a musician. He finds success, and he's playing in the church, the organ, when the father and the mother and his sister, they happen to go to that church to worship one day, and the sister exclaims, "Oh my goodness, that's him, that's our boy." The story, though, is more than being who you are, following the gifts that God has given you, being the authentic you, finding your path in life. Because the story ends with a little Swiss boy after he masters his dream and becomes a musician and plays the organ and plays his best for God. He comes back to his home. He comes back to the mountains. And he comes back to take care of the cows and to hay the fields in the summer. He realizes that it wasn't that bad after all. Sometimes in life, we do need to step away from where we are or from a situation. We need to step away to gain perspective. Now, when you step away, you might realize that that was the best decision ever and that you're not going to be returning to what was. But many times when we do step away to gain that perspective, we begin to see the beauty of what was already there. There's the old saying that sometimes you can't go home, but sometimes you can. And stepping away from the things that you take for granted or the things that are just too familiar, sometimes you need to just walk away from it all to really see the value in what you have. There's been many mornings here at the farm that I've looked around thinking, oh gosh, I just don't see the joy anymore. I need to paint the walls. They're all scraped. And the back door, I really need a new one. I don't know if you've noticed in other videos, but Fritz, when he was a puppy, really did a job on the door, scratching it and biting it. And so every morning I look at that door and I'm like, oh, I just don't want it anymore. I want something new, something different. And that's okay. We all get like that. But when I was away on my business trip for a couple of days, much longer than I wanted to be away, When I came back and I dropped my suitcase and I looked around, you know what? That beat up door wasn't that bad after all. And all the smudges and the scrapes on the paint due to wear and tear and little puppy energy, it didn't bother me that much either. So I want to share with you right now, if you are feeling a little out of sorts or a bit down, or you're just not happy with where you are, or you take a look around and you just can't take it anymore, whether it's a mess or it needs to be refurbished or whether it needs a fresh coat of paint, whatever you might see, I encourage you to step away for a bit. If you can't go away for an extended trip or even just a weekend, then take a ride. Go for a Sunday afternoon ride. Step away from the situation or the environment that is just pulling you down so that you can gain perspective. At the end of the book, a little Swiss boy is back home and he has an opportunity to talk to his mother and tell his mother all of the wonderful things that he has seen and that he learned, and how his organ teacher became like a surrogate father to him. But then he shares how wonderful it is to be home once again in the mountains. And he shares with his mother that when I sing the songs you taught me, I sing them differently than in the old days. Then I heard only the melody, but now I sing the songs of praise with my entire soul. So the songs that he used to sing when he wanted to leave the mountains, they have taken on new meaning. Those songs, those ancient songs of his ancestors that his mother taught him, once they were just a melody, but now they have really reached his soul. They have new meaning, new depth. And that's what happens when we just step away from what is really weighing us down so that we gain new perspective. Now, again, maybe perhaps stepping away, you need to stay away. But perhaps stepping away will give you that fresh new look that can really change everything, your attitude. It could put a new song in your mouth. So the little Swiss boy says to his mom, those songs you taught me, I sing them differently now. For once they were a melody, but now they really are in my soul. The mother replies back, whatever happens, remember, the Lord means it for good. When I sat on your bed that night before you went to the mountain, I would have done anything to keep you home. But that was my short-sightedness. For going was to bring you your greatest happiness. And the little boy replies, I too thought that that was the saddest thing that I ever had to experience leaving you, but it turned out to be the loveliest experience, and I shall never forget it. And when the mother left his room, after an affectionate good night, her heart was so filled with gratitude and happiness that she folded her hands and sent a prayer of thanks to heaven. I am now more mindful to remember to look around at everything that I see and see it with fresh eyes of an innocent, childlike faith. Not to be jaded, not to be brought down by ugliness or whatever might be before me. But if we could just see with the eyes of God and to keep our lives simple and to have a simple faith, not to make things overly complicated. We don't know where our adventures will lead us. If they'll take us off of the mountain for a season or bring us back to the mountain in another season. If our adventures are asking us to leave for a little bit to gain perspective or maybe to leave permanently for a whole new chapter in life. We don't know. Only God knows. But we trust with a childlike faith, like the little Swiss boy, we trust that God will have the most beautiful plans. So the story of the little Swiss boy is not as popular as Heidi, but he's still just as powerful and gave me many moments to ponder and to really embrace where I am right now and how to have fresh perspective and not let anything get me down when I'm just feeling the mundane just wearing me down. So until we meet again, God bless. And make sure that you take time today to enjoy some cheese and some chocolate. You won't be sorry. Trust me.